outside the 10. Carr jumps it in and it's Wall, he spins into the end zone for the touchdown. Watching greatness on one end in LeBron. There's a dude with 35 in white getting it done defensively and then offense taking over the fight. Mama, there goes that man.
They have shared a brilliant championship battle, but the championship can only be won by one, and it's going Dutch in 2021. Max Verstappen, for the first time ever, is champion of the world.
Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of the Waterboy Experience. I'm your host, the Waterboy himself, Davis McLemore, and this week we're talking about NFL, NHL, a dash of the NBA, other nondescript motorsports, and finally, the Formula One race in Spain. To help me make sense of all this mess is my good friend and co-host, the Red Bull chugging son of a gun, and the king of the virgins, Jason Shaddix. Jason, how are you?
Now, hold on a second. What's this
Wasn't
about?
that a stirring introduction? What do you think of that?
Don't bury the lead. What is this about the king of the virgins?
Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it. So,
I mean, I've taken many of a girl's virginity, but that's another...
That's another
day.
Matter.
That's for another podcast.
We can make a whole nother podcast off of that. But I'm just going to dive straight into it. This was actually breaking as of, I guess, a day or two ago. But the NFL owners are actually considering action to force Dan Snyder to sell the Washington Commanders, per USA Today. From one of the owners, quote, "If the financial improprieties happened, I think that's the nail in the coffin. We are counting votes." So, what do you think about that? Dan Snyder finally possibly out as the Washington Commanders team?
There's something about people named Snyder that just rubs me the wrong way.
Zack Snyder.
Dan Snyder.
Other Dan Snyder.
Exactly. Just Snyders in general. But let me ask you this. What does this do to the morality of the team? Would it benefit it more, or would it just bring it down? Because to get rid of a team owner, what is his title? President,
GM,
whatever
et cetera,
he is.
Yeah.
Like, for the NFL to do that, there must be something really big. There must be a reason why. Is it the whole scandal that's been going around the last few years?
I think that's the biggest part of it.
But haven't they not found anything yet? There's no concrete evidence, just allegations.
We can't talk about this.
I forgot.
I'm kidding. But, I mean, no, there is stuff. There is something there. And the fact of the matter is, there's just so much drama around this man. Nobody really likes him, even on the team. I think having him out would be a morality boost to the team. Because ultimately, I think he's kind of like Jerry Jones is with the Cowboys right now. I think he's just a drag on the development of that team. So if the Washington Commanders want to make something out of themselves, I think the best thing to do is get Dan Snyder out. I'll say the same thing about the Washington Cowboys. The only way the Washington Cowboys, not Washington Cowboys, Dallas Cowboys, the only way that they can progress as a team is if they get Jerry Jones out. Because he's ultimately more of a hindrance on that team than something productive.
How long would this process take?
That's actually a good question. I'm not sure. I would assume like a year or two. Now, here's the question. Is it to kick him out altogether, or is it to force him to sell the team? Because it could take longer to find a buyer for the team. But if it's just to get him out.
And there are rules on who can buy a team, right? It's not just... I think you have to buy it with a corporation or something. Like, you can't be an individual owner.
Most people buy it with a corporation because they don't have the own individual money. But, like, let's say if The Rock wanted to buy the Washington football team
and move it to the XFL
Commanders and move it to the XFL. I mean, if he wanted to buy it with his own money, if he had that much money, I think he could be able to. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, he doesn't have that much money.
No, he doesn't.
They're probably worth, like, what, $2 billion? But say Elon Musk.
Real quick.
But say Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, if they wanted to buy the Washington Commanders, honestly, they could buy the entire NFL if they wanted to with their capital.
That's true, and actually, the Washington Commanders are worth about $4.2 billion US.
Which to some people, that's just chump change.
Yeah, some people.
Come on, Elon, make them great again.
Yeah, you bought Twitter, now do the Washington Commanders. And then in other news, Cleveland Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield will not be attending the Browns' voluntary OTAs that's open Tuesday, as expected.
Because of an injury, right?
I think he's just mad about Deshaun Watson starting over him.
Wasn't there a player who would miss the mandatory, like, whatever you just said, because of an injury? I think it was like an ankle injury.
The voluntary OTAs.
Voluntary OTAs,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I don't know where I read
But
that.
now, once we get to the mandatory OTAs, if he wants to go to those or leave, whatever. Staying in Cleveland, Jadeveon Clowney is re-signing with the Cleveland Browns on a one-year deal worth up to $11 million. Just adding to that pass rush with Myles Garrett. Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray will not be attending Arizona's OTAs this week as expected. All continues to remain quiet on his contract front for now. Last but not least, the Indianapolis Colts are signing quarterback Nick Foles to a 2-year deal. The details of that deal are unknown at the moment. So that's what's going on in the NFL. Not a whole lot, but there's a lot of players that are, all around the league. There's players that just are choosing not to go to these OTAs. And it's one of those things, they can go if they want to, and they can go, it really doesn't make a difference. But still, it's just about, where your thought process is. Like, hey, we're having a training camp. You're a leader on this team. You should be there. And if you say no, then that kind of...
But, I mean, if you're playing the highest league, which is the NFL, within the highest football, like, you're one of the top football players in the world. Wouldn't you want to get better? I mean, if you really want to be
That's true.
Super Bowl winners, you would be like, yes, I want to attend pretty
Then
much all the
you're-
practice I can get. I mean, unless it's like something specific for a position you don't play as. But, I mean, it's still important to know the strengths and weaknesses of every player.
And I mean, like when Michael Jordan won the finals, the next day he was back at the Bulls facility practicing. The very next day after he won. So,
I think it shows who really wants to win and who's really just there to...
who wants to play football and who wants to be a celebrity. I
Exactly.
think that's what it is.
Yeah. But I'm going to piggyback from your Indianapolis Colt and go to the Indianapolis 500 for IndyCar racing, which is going to be this Sunday. And on, I believe it was Saturday, there was actually a impressive speed record that was done
Really?
by Scott Dixon, who won pole position with it by clocking in at 234 miles per hour, 376 kilometers per hour for our friends all over the world. But yes, he clocked in that very high speed record.
Attaboy Scott Dixon.
Yeah.
Making that thing fly.
Hopefully the Kiwi from New Zealand will be able to make that into a race win this Sunday. But yeah, that was Indianapolis 500. That was Indy racing.
Hopefully he can move that fast during the race.
Hopefully. But now I also want to talk about NASCAR for a little bit. I know. But actually it's a really good news. Ryan Blaney, I think that's how you pronounce his name, won his first All-Star race this weekend at the Texas Motor Speedway.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's just it about him.
That's it.
Yeah, I didn't really watch the race.
Oh, no,
It's NASCAR.
Yo,
I get
I mean,
bored.
how could you watch the races? They're just boring.
Yeah. Sorry to all the NASCAR fans out there, but it's not entertaining.
You just drink beer while you watch them and fall asleep halfway through the race, and then you wake up on the last lap.
Mm-hmm. But in other motorsport news, Lamborghini is actually going to enter the World Endurance Championship and the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship in 2024 with their new hypercar.
Interesting.
It is. Hopefully Lamborghini can win a few championships in the coming years.
Do you think they will, or?
Usually these kind of division endurance are usually dominated by like Toyota and all them.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think they'll have a good run. I think Lamborghini will have a good run. And it's actually more interesting that more manufacturers are entering hypercar, which if you know anything about cars, hypercars are like the LaFerrari, the Lamborghini Veneno, like these really expensive and these high performance cars. Not just a regular supercar, but just like the top of the top.
Right. These extremely high-performing cars.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how they perform at the World Endurance Championship at Le Mans. Because, you're racing for hours and hours, and that's putting a lot of strain on those cars, which a lot of people who buy those hypercars for private use, they don't really run them. So it'll be interesting if they can hold up. But in other news, In Formula 2, Felipe Drugovich won both the feature and sprint race this weekend in Barcelona. And in Formula 1 news, we actually have two very interesting news. One is that Formula 1 is spending over $240 million on the pits and the paddocks for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Again, that's $240 million for just the pit lane and the paddocks. And that just makes me wonder how much money are they spending on the rest.
I just hope it's not as hokey as the Miami GP was.
Oh, God, I really hope not.
I just hope they don't play it up.
Vegas is going to be more over the top with the celebrities.
They'll probably have Elvis impersonators. And
Actually, that would probably make it better.
No, it might not. I don't know. We'll see.
But it'll be, I think, Thanksgiving Day. It will be the Grand Prix for 2023, and I'm excited to see it because, at least there's something exciting to watch other than the Cowboys lose. But in other news, Formula 1 will not replace the Russian Grand Prix, and instead of having 23 races this year, we will only have 22, which will be great for the team and the drivers as they won't have to travel as much. Other news is...
It is an interesting choice, though, to just not add another race.
Well, replace it.
Yeah, just replace it.
Yeah, obviously with the things happening between Russia and Ukraine, you can't have a Grand Prix, and... The fact that they didn't replace it, because a lot of people were hoping that they would replace it with Hockenheim, which is a fan favorite track. It has always produced great races, and it has always screwed a Ferrari or a Mercedes, and we've all
You would
enjoyed
have loved it.
I would have loved it until it was Max Verstappen who went off the track and crashed. Also, Formula 1 is, you know how their schedule is so hectic, and I told you, for the Miami Grand Prix, they just came from Australia, now they're going to Miami, and from Miami they're going to Spain, Monaco, but they came from all these countries. Formula 1 has decided that next year they're going to set the calendar by region, so they're going to hit pretty much all of the Middle East in one go, all of Europe in one go, all the Americas in one go, to save on cost, fuel, and be more green.
So they can stop running like Crockett did.
Yeah, they're running like Jim Crockett did in the late 1980s.
Just going all over the place, back and forth, no pattern.
Well, the difference is that while Crockett went to all these places in a weird schedule, he didn't sell out. Now, Formula 1, they've been selling out pretty much everywhere they go. In Spanish Grand Prix, they sold it out, and I think they had 100,000 plus fans. So, they got to be doing something, right? Now, do you have any news before we start on the Spanish Grand Prix?
The only other news that I have, and I'm not going to talk a whole lot about hockey. First things first, President Cup winners of the Florida Panthers. They got swept by the reigning, defending Stanley Cup champions, the Tampa Bay Lightning. But it actually came out that the night before the last game, that several Florida Panther players partied at a strip club until 3 a.m. Details as to why the Waterboy was not invited are unknown. But that was interesting because if it is true, what are you doing?
If you celebrate... Look, I understand...
But supposedly, reportedly, there is video of them at the strip club. And then they asked the team coach, Andrew Brunette, if the rumors of the Florida Panthers partying at a strip club are true. And he said, no, I would check your sources on that because that didn't happen. Which, of course, he's not going to be like, oh, yeah, we were at a strip club. You should have seen this one whore. She was hot. But, of course, he's not going to say that. But, he's just kind of denying it when there's video proof.
I understand partying after you win.
If you were up 3-0 to the Tampa Bay Lightning, okay. But you're down 3-0 to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah,
let's go party. We ain't got nothing else to do.
Exactly, like I was saying. I understand if you're partying after you win the game, but this is before the game. You want to get as much sleep as you can. You just want to be ready. You want to be fresh. And like you said, if it's true, well, now we know why they lost. Of course, Tampa Bay Lightning has been great this season.
Oh, yeah. So, actually, this is the first time that the President Cup winner actually gets swept in the tournament since 2019. The team that got swept back then was the Tampa Bay Lightning. So
do you have any more news for us? Any NBA news?
I'm actually not going to cover NBA just because, I'm sorry for my NBA fans, but, it's kind of hard to just catch back up with what's going on in that world. So, yeah, I think from here, I'm ready to dive straight into the Spain Grand Prix. What do you think?
I think it's time to go. And actually, for the Spanish Grand Prix, I actually wrote what I believe to be a very professional looking intro. Do you want to hear it?
Let's hear it.
Do you think the people will like it?
Will the people like it? I'm not sure. I haven't heard it.
Well, then let's go for it.
Go for it.
For the second time this year, Formula One returns to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. This time for the Spanish Grand Prix, a vital race for the Formula One team as it gives them a reference point to where they stand in terms of performance compared to winter testing. Nearly all the teams brought in a number of upgrades for the Grand Prix, except for the American team of Haas. Team principal Gunther Steiner believes that bringing in upgrades wouldn't give them a good look at the car's true performance and could have even been a hinder to their weekend. Instead, with the data gathered from winter testing and from this weekend, they'll have a better understanding of where their weak points are at and where to focus for future upgrades. And of course, it wouldn't be Formula One without some sort of controversy, and this time it is Aston Martin who were under the spotlight. After showing off the new upgrades they brought to Spain, being a redesigned floor, side pods, engine cover, rear wing, and halo, many people pointed out the similarities between them and the Red Bull cars. These launched accusations of Aston Martin copying the successful team's car after their original design yielded very little results. Many people point to Aston Martin having hired many of Red Bull's employees earlier this year to the similarities. Due to how similar they are on social media, they dubbed the car the Green Red Bull. And this isn't the first time the team has been accused of copying a car. In 2020, Aston Martin, then known as Racing Point, launched a car very similar to the previous year's championship-winning car of Mercedes, this one dubbed the Pink Mercedes, and it lived up to its moniker, producing great racing results and even a race win for Checo Perez. This resulted in many teams calling for an investigation, and after a thorough review, the FIA found that Racing Point used the same brakes as Mercedes and were given a €400,000 fine and a 15-point deduction to the Constructors' Championship. Fortunately for the team this time around, the FIA found that no copying had been done. So, what do you think?
Well done, sir. Finally, something sounds professional on this show.
Yeah, something sounds professional. But let's break that down. Did you see the pictures going on social media about the green Mercedes? I mean, the green Aston Martin. I mean, the green Red Bull.
The green Red Bull, yes.
Yes, the green Red Bull. I'm thinking all over
Get your
the
words
place.
out, son. Yes, I have seen it, and it basically looks like they just wrapped the Aston Martin paint onto a Red Bull. To me, it does.
It does. There are some similarities to it, but the big thing a lot of people are pointing out, okay, they did hire Red Bull employees and even an aerodynamics designer who worked on the 2022 car.
Yeah.
But also, if something works, a lot of teams tend to copy it.
Typically.
And it did piss off Red Bull because they do believe that, there could have been some intellectual property theft. Again, the FIA didn't find anything, and I read somewhere, can't remember where, but they said that actually Aston Martin had developed two different cars late last year, and that the FIA would actually looked into it and saw that, yeah, they did develop two different cars.
Yeah.
Let's start this race review by going into Free Practice 1, in which we saw Nick DeVries, the reigning Formula E World Champion, replace Alex Albon for Williams, Yuri Vips replaced Sergio Perez for Red Bull Racing, and Robert Kubica replaced Zhou Guanyu in Alfa Romeo as part of the new FIA regulations to give younger drivers or reserve drivers a chance to test out Formula One machinery so they're not struggling so much during a race in which they have to replace a driver because of, well, in recent years, because of COVID or other things. But yeah, that's pretty much the only important news from FP1. But now let's go into Free Practice 2. In second free practice, we actually saw the Mercedes dominate and be back at the top. So we had a P2 and P3 for both Mercedes, and in FP3, Mick Schumacher's right rear brakes caught on fire. I think that Haas, those seats at Haas are just haunted. There's no...
It's terrible.
It's terrible. And if we go to qualifying, Fernando Alonso didn't make it out of Q1 with a P17, and that's not good. It wasn't totally his fault, but his contract is coming up this year, and they're looking between him and another driver to race for Alpine, so it'll be interesting if he can pick it up. Both Haas cars actually made it into Q3 after Lando Norris' time was deleted for track limit violation, and Max once again couldn't complete the final stint of Q3 after his DRS wing wouldn't open. Now let's get started with the race, and we'll start with news that Fernando Alonso had to start at the end of the pack, not just P17 but P20, because he actually had to change parts in his engine and he went over his allotted limit. Now what that means is in the car, the engine, the power unit, you can change a lot of parts out when they start wearing out. And there's actually a limit set to how many parts you can change out. So I think it's like 3 or 4 limit per part. And once they wear out and you go over that limit, you take a penalty. And he's gone over the limit. So now every time he changes a part, once it's worn out, he has to take a penalty.
But he has no other choice. He has to change that part.
Yes. And to me, that just points out that engine, I don't know about...
Is it just not very well built?
Well, it's not very well, but it's well built because it's a fast engine, but the reliability.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Alonso's been a few scuffles here and there throughout the season. In Imola, his engine cover flew out. That must have not helped. He can't catch a break, but it's worrying because now even if he gets a good result in qualifying, he's going to have to start at the back of the grid, or he's going to have to take a 5-grid penalty for every part you get to change.
And he's not going to win very many races doing that.
No, I don't think he's going to win because he doesn't really have the fastest car.
Yeah.
And like I said, his seat's up. So, what is Alpine going to do? And you really can't upgrade the engine anymore because the engine's frozen.
Right.
Whatever it is right now, that's what you have to work with until 2026 when the new engines come in with the overhaul regulation.
So is Alpine just going to fall to the bottom? Or is this just a Fernando Alonso problem? Or who's the other driver for Alpine?
Esteban Ocon.
I
haven't heard anything about Ocon. I don't know if it's just bad luck with Fernando, but it is worrying that 6 races in and he's already gone through all the parts that he can. So, like I said, it just brings in the reliability of the car into question. Anyway, now on something that we have to take note is the track temperature and just the regular temperature in Barcelona at the time.
Hot.
It was freaking hot. The track temperature was actually 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 48 degrees Celsius. And the air temperature, which is, regular temperature, is 90 degrees Fahrenheit and 32 degrees Celsius.
So what kind of tires are best for this kind of track?
So there's 5 different tires.
Right.
And they have a different sort of like how long they can last and how grippy they are. Right now, they're using the hardest compound they have. So hardest compound doesn't give you the best performance, but it lasts longer. Now, of course, you have compound 3, 4, and 5. So 3 is going to be the soft tire, which is going to give you the best performance. Medium is you're going to get an in-between performance and how long to last. And then the hard tires is the hardest compound they have available, which is going to be not going to give you the greatest performance, but it will last you longer.
Yeah.
Now, surprisingly, a lot of teams use the soft compound and the medium compound throughout the race.
Yeah, I'm watching the highlights of the race, and there's the chart on the side that shows you what kind of tires they're using.
Mm-hmm.
Max is using medium, but mostly everybody else is using soft.
Yeah, which was surprising.
I know.
The tires are heating up a lot quicker than they would be. Last time they were here, it was during winter testing, and the temperatures were really low. Now they're really hot. And actually, a lot of people, I was looking through online, going through Reddit, Twitter, and all that, and a lot of people were mentioning how really hot it was, and that there were people that were fainting at the track, whether, during the race or after the race. It was really hot, and to make matters worse, traffic was just crazy. It actually got to the point where Formula One had a talk with the people, I think the government of Barcelona and the track, people who own the track, and they just told them, hey, you got to sort the situation out because, you're ruining the experience of people, and with 90 degrees, man, it's fucking hot.
There's just so many people there.
Exactly. So, they got to fix that. And I mean, it's 100,000 people going to the racetrack. That's a lot of cars. And even if you're taking public transportation, they said that the trains were just full. It was packed. So that's something that happened. But now for the race itself. So when the lights go out, Leclerc starts on the fresh tires. And Max actually started on the tires from Q3, which he didn't use. Well, he did use, but he never got a really fast lap, so he's still using those. And Leclerc immediately blocked him off. So Max couldn't really do his thing where he could get really close to the person going into turn 1. Nope, Leclerc caught him off. And honestly, it looked like it was going to be Leclerc the entire way. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, I'm watching it, and early on,
it's not even close. Moving. It's not close. Leclerc is just so much faster than Max. Now, going into turn 1 for lap 1, Checo and George actually had a little bit of a contact. And still, a little bit further down into, I think, the fourth corner, Lewis Hamilton and Kevin Magnussen actually touched front wheels. Pieces of Lewis' diffuser was actually thrown over the track. So he had damage, and Lewis actually went on to recover into P5.
I think he finished about 5, yeah.
Yeah, he finished in P5. But after he got hit, he actually told the team that, hey, what if I just essentially throw the race away and save the engine? And his engineer told him, no, we see P8 as something you can get. And I find that kind of funny because Lewis Hamilton always says, you can never give up, you can never do this and all that. And yet he kind of wanted to throw the race away. I think that's a bit of a...
That's just, why? You're not even trying at this point. George Russell is their number one driver now because Hamilton's just checked out.
If you see the cars with the yellow on them, that's the second car. That's not the first car.
Well, and right after he made contact, Hamilton says, explicit. I don't know what he said, but he said, I've been hit. Then it went to Magnussen, and Magnussen said, Lewis knew what he was doing. He just ramped me.
Well, the thing is, you have a limited view in the cockpit, so you really can't see what happened. I was watching the race live, and I saw the replays later on. It was a racing accident. It happened. Lewis suffered a little bit of understeer, so he really couldn't move the car to a place where he wouldn't hit Magnussen, and it was just something that happened. And the steward said that, it was a racing incident. Unfortunately, this racing incident kind of destroyed the race for Kevin Magnussen, and
finished dead last, didn't he?
Second to dead last.
Yeah,
he beat Alex Albon, Alex Albon went on to say, after the first lap, my tires were dead. Like, I had absolutely no grip. No idea what's going on. But Kevin Magnussen, it ruined his race, like I said. But if you remember how I said in the intro that Haas didn't want to have any upgrades because they wanted to see, where the car was and all that, the weak points. Yeah. Lewis Hamilton brought that car from second to last in P19, and he brought it all the way back up to P5. And the Haas was lapped twice by the leader.
Lapped twice?
Yes. Lapped twice. And Mick Schumacher, he was on a bad strategy throughout the race, and he ended up going from being in the points to going P12. So again, the curse continues with Schumi.
And Schumi, I'm looking at lap 7 right now when Leclerc spinned out, and Schumi's up at 8.
Mm-hmm.
Magnussen's down there at 20. Magnussen's running on medium tires.
Yeah.
Everybody else is running on soft. That's weird.
Well, I mean, think about it. You're at the very end, and you have to change strategies. You got to go as long as you can, so maybe you can catch a few positions. But Magnussen didn't get any positions. To be fair, he got positions.
He got one.
Yeah, towards the end, it was Alex Albon who was struggling with the car the entire weekend. Yeah. And actually, Schumi was passed by Esteban Ocon and Valtteri Bottas very easily throughout the race. He was passed quickly. And he just struggled the entire time. And I think that Haas not bringing any upgrades to the car, I think that's a stupid move because it shows your car can't keep up. Yes, you designed a really amazing car.
And I feel bad for Mick because, he's trying really hard, but he's working with what he's got, and what he's got is not helping.
Exactly. And the thing is, the last few races, you could say, it was Mick's fault, especially in Miami where he crashed into Sebastian.
I think that was just a rookie mistake. He just got too excited, and he just bumped into...
Yeah, exactly.
He just bumped into Vettel.
But for this race, it wasn't his fault. He drove the car the best he could, but it was just that strategy. And even he said after the race, we're going to have to see what we did, but, we learn from our mistakes. We learn what we did wrong, and we'll try to fix it and all that. But his seat's up this year. And I read an article that Gunther Steiner told him, hey, there's a lot of people who want your seat.
Cap.
Exactly.
Cap. Who wants to race with that shit box of a Haas?
I know, it's a horrible car.
But remember,
it's not a horrible car.
Early in the season, we were like, they might win Constructors' Championship.
But they haven't been upgrading the car.
No.
That's the issue.
That's their problem.
And the thing is, you're great at qualifying. There's no doubt about that. I saw those cars, really great at qualifying, got into Q3. Mick Schumacher was really close into getting into Q3, but then Lando got knocked out. He was in P10, so he got into Q3 by the skin of his teeth. But that car needs to be upgraded. This is 2018 all over again. In 2018, they had a really fast car, a little bit of an unreliable car, but really fast. But they just dropped, and that's what I'm seeing with Haas. They're just dropping and dropping, and I think, after Monaco, you guys better bring in better upgrades because you do have the potential to be a really good midfield team, but you got to actually put in the money for it. You got the money. You just got to do it. And this whole no upgrading thing, I think that's stupid. There's a reason why every team
Is that them
upgrades.
just quitting? Just not quitting?
I thought you said queefing.
Is that them just queefing?
Well, in a way, yes, because they're just falling behind. They
Just
can't
because
keep
they
up.
don't want to upgrade. But all of the best teams are upgrading. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes is getting better.
It might be a combination of them being too complacent with how good of a car they develop, because a lot of people did say, yeah, that car is the most developed. Unfortunately, they don't continue with the upgrades. That Ferrari, that Red Bull, Mercedes has been upgrades after upgrades after upgrades,
And they've had they had problems early on in the season. All of them did.
and they still have problems because throughout the race, Max Verstappen had an issue with the DRS.
And Leclerc's engine went out.
Leclerc's engine went out. So hold on, I'm working
you
my
getting
way.
it? Okay, you're getting on.
I'm working my way up there. So Verstappen had an issue with his DRS. Essentially, the wing flap of his rear wing wouldn't open. And sometimes it would open, but then it would close. And Max got really frustrated. And he was just cussing out the engineer. He was cussing out the car, saying, we can't even design the most basic fucking shit. And in a way, he does have a point because it is something mechanical. It's not something where it's the button or something like that. And it got to the point where Max was hitting the button multiple times so it would open. And his engineer said, you just got to hit it once. And he's like, mate, I'm hitting it all the time and it's not opening.
Max, calm down. Come on.
Exactly. And a lot of people pointed out, that's the immaturity of Max. He shouldn't be yelling. I mean, it happens. It's racing. You're racing for the world championship.
Max is very aggressive.
He is. He's naturally very aggressive.
He's got a little bit of a temper.
He's got a bit of a temper.
The raging Red Bull.
Exactly, but it fits. That's how he won the world championship because he pushed the car to his limit. He was very aggressive. Some people might say a little bit too aggressive, but I think he's been good.
It worked for him.
It did. But his DRS flap, wouldn't open, and George Russell was ahead of him. And good Lord, George, oh my God.
What a job from George Russell.
He was defending against Max, and even if Max had DRS, George made it really difficult.
Keep an eye on George Russell. He's going to be a world champion one of these days. This is lap 24. He's in between Leclerc and Verstappen. He's balling out. He's doing great.
Yeah, and it got to the point where they were like, okay, Max, let Checo in and let Checo see if he can get past George. And he couldn't get past George, but Leclerc's engine went out.
What lap was that?
Oh, I cannot remember.
I think it's about to go out, as I'm watching it. This is
lap
27.
Yeah, lap 27. Somewhere around there, Leclerc's engine went out.
Oh, yeah, he's going down. Yeah, he's in the pit now.
Yeah, he started losing power, and it turns out it was an MGUK problem, and it's just, again, brings into question the reliability of the car.
Yeah.
And not only that, but earlier, Carlos Sainz spun out. He spun out into the gravel.
Lap 7.
Lap 7 going into turn 4. I think that it is turn 4. But he caught the car and he got back on the track. And now he lost places because of it, but it actually happened to Max too. And the announcers were saying, well, we're looking at the replay and we don't see an issue with either of the drivers. It's not a driver error. It just seems that the wind was too strong and caught the rear of the car and just made him lose stability.
Right.
And they just spun out. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. Both of them spun out. But Max recovered and, eventually he got the DRS working and then they went into the pits where they changed tires and the strategy helped Red Bull and essentially they became a 1-2. And then George Russell was behind. But here's an interesting thing. Perez was leading the race at this point. And they tell Perez, hey, Max is on a different strategy. If he's faster than you, let him go by. And he said, I don't like this, but okay. And he let Max go through.
Yeah, lap 49, Verstappen just passed Perez.
Exactly. And here's the thing. At the end of the race, it was Max P1, Checo P2, George Russell P3. And honestly, Checo was a bit upset, and at the end he said, guys, I'm happy for the team, but we got to talk about this later. And that's true, because a lot of people are complaining about team orders. Now, team orders, it happens in Formula 1. You have your preference of a driver.
We saw it with
Michael Schumacher.
We saw it with Hamilton and Bottas.
And it's annoying. It must feel really bad for the drivers. And here's the thing. It's so early on in the World Championship that honestly, and with Leclerc out, I think it should have been left to, if Max ends up passing Checo, a little bit of a fighting, maybe not, anything that could damage both of the races, but, the better man wins.
Yeah.
But just to give those direct orders so early on in the race, early on in the season, it's kind of disheartening because at the end of the day, Max did take over the world championship by 6 points.
But Checo is not too far behind.
Checo is like 20 points behind Leclerc, who sits at P2. Yeah.
It's not like Checo has no chance of winning the world championship at all.
No,
it's not like
he's not out of the title picture. If, say, Leclerc and Max crash out next week in Monaco, which Monaco is a track which Leclerc has been horrible at.
Famously horrible.
He crashed, I think, was it Villeneuve's Ferrari? No, it was Niki Lauda's Ferrari.
Yep.
At the Monaco Classic.
What are
last
you doing?
Week. His brake disc just broke off and he just ended up crashing.
It's just an old car? Or?
It's an old car, they had problems back then too. But the thing is, it's Leclerc. It happens to Leclerc. I don't think he's ever finished a Monaco race in his life. So, I mean, hopefully, he get rid of all that bad juju with that crash with Niki Lauda's car. And hopefully he still got bad juju with Monaco.
Well, think about how bad that'll hurt him. I mean, he fell out of this race, and if he crashes out in Monaco.
If Max crashes out in Monaco, Paris will he'll either take over the world championship or he'll be very close to Max, like a few point difference.
And then we'll be talking about the story of the year, going to be Sergio and Verstappen.
And Red Bull is leaning towards Verstappen.
Has that ever happened?
Two teammates being close together?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg, 2016.
Oh,
that's
right.
You remember when they crashed down?
Yeah.
That's why. And here's the thing. After Nico Rosberg won the world championship, he retired, and they got Valtteri Bottas, and they made him
there's heat
bow.
There's heat between
Nico.
There's heat between Nico and Lewis now.
Yes. At the Miami Grand Prix, Nico was pointing out. He was enjoying it. He was pointing out every time Lewis was getting passed.
I mean, we were supporting it. We were like, keep it coming. Come on.
Keep it coming, But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it happens because at this point, I don't see Carlos Sainz being in the title picture. Now, if George Russell, makes a miracle and manages to catch up with Leclerc and the Red Bull drivers, it'll be very interesting because as much as I hate Mercedes, I'm not a Mercedes fan, specifically a Lewis Hamilton fan. I do want to see George Russell win a world championship because George... He's got something, and he's the underdog when he was with Williams, and I just want to see him win. Like, I was happy. I would have been happy if George Russell would have won the race. I would have been like, oh, fuck Mercedes. No, I would have been like, yes, let's go, George, let's go.
So, let me give you this scenario. Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen crash out in Monaco. Then Sergio Perez won, George Russell number 2. Who wins that race?
I think it's going to be Checo.
You think it's going to be Checo?
Yeah, because Monaco, while it is a historic track, it's not the greatest racing track just because the cars are wider, heavier nowadays. Because back in the day, they used to be really small, so they were able to have more racing. And now it depends on who gets in qualifying, although you still can get some good racing every now and then. I think it's going to be Checo if it comes down to that. Checo's just a better driver.
Better defender.
A better defender. In Monaco, all you got to do is defend, to be honest. If it was a track where there was like benefited more those who were attacking, George. Either way, if George,
so you don't think this is a track that's really built for Max? Probably the best attacker.
Monaco? Yeah, I don't believe it's a track for Max. Honestly, it's not a track built for anybody. It's just whatever place you get in qualifying, more than likely that's what you'll stay. Pit stop strategy is the only thing that really makes a difference, which is sad if you think about it, because it's such a historic race. But unfortunately, we don't get that much.
There was a lot of turnaround here.
Yeah.
In this race.
Yeah. And something I did notice is Valtteri Bottas.
Finished P6.
Finished P6, but early on in the race, I was like, oh, Bottas might be able to get a podium. And I was cheering for a podium, but Hamilton and Sainz just got ahead of him, and I'm thinking, you know what? That Alfa Romeo, it's fast. I think they still need to work on it, but I do believe they'll be the top midfield team. And there's going to be 3 teams fighting for, the coveted first place: Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari, which that's typical. That's the big 3. But I think Alfa Romeo will be the top midfield team.
With Valtteri Bottas, they look a lot better.
He is such a great driver. He's honestly carrying the team, and there's nothing wrong against the second driver.
He went out this race.
Yes, there was actually a problem with his engine. So again, reliability of the engine comes into play. And it's a little bit of worrying because, I was thinking, oh, God, I hope it doesn't happen to Bottas because I'm behind Bottas. If he gets a podium this year, I'm going to be happy, and I really do.
Look, and if he gets a podium and Hamilton doesn't, that's fantastic.
How the tables have turned, my friend. But yeah, overall, that was the Grand Prix. There was a lot of interesting things. Let's see. I think Fernando got a really high place. I can't remember where he ended.
Fernando Alonso finished 9th.
9th from 20th. Ocon had a good race.
Ocon finished 7th.
Lando Norris from McLaren. He finished, what did he
8th.
finish? He finished 8th, and he actually was dealing with tonsillitis. Tonsillitis.
That's impressive.
And like he wasn't even talking like most of the time. He was like, you could tell he was sick, but he did a good job.
And Daniel Ricciardo, his teammate, finished 12th. So
that's an interesting thing though, with Lando Norris even being sick with a fever and all that, still beating Ricciardo. What does that say about him?
You think Lando Norris would be a world champion one day?
If they can fix that for McLaren, yes, because last year he was doing amazing last year.
Yeah.
The car wasn't there yet. I think if they would have had one more year, I think he would have been fighting for race wins this year. But because he was getting in the podiums like pretty much all the time, you could guarantee that Lando would be in the podium until Russia. Once Russia Grand Prix hit and Lando lost his chance at winning a race, it kind of just went downhill from there.
Yeah. And Kevin Magnussen finished 17th, flanked 16 and 18 by Nicholas Latifi and Alex Albon. And Mick Schumacher finished 14th.
I thought he finished 12th.
No, 14.
Damn.
12th was Daniel Ricciardo. But Magnussen actually finished, he was the only one who finished with hard tires. That's interesting.
I mean, at this point, he was lapped twice.
Yeah, at this point, he's like, save those tires.
Honestly, if he would have said, I just want to save the engine, fair enough, because that Haas it's good once at the front, but it can't.
That engine isn't worth saving.
It's not the engine, it's the car itself, because it's a Ferrari engine.
I think Haas really needs to
buckle down,
take things seriously, quit fiddle farting around.
Exactly. But
Hamilton looked sort of like the old Lewis Hamilton, finishing in 5th.
He was very racy.
Climbing.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still saying something because, like you said early on in the race, he wanted to just throw away the race. And he said, no, race, motherfucker.
Yeah, his race engineer.
Try.
Hey, not so loud.
And then George Russell finished 3rd, Sergio Perez finished 2nd, and of course, Supermax finished 1st.
Supermax. But yes, that was the Spanish Grand Prix. We'll see you next week for the Monaco Grand Prix. I don't know if it'll be really good, but this time there will be an episode released this Friday.
There will be an episode released this Friday. We're sorry that we missed this past week. We've had technical difficulties. But first, before we sign off, give us a prediction of what's going to happen in Monaco.
Leclerc is going to crash out. That's pretty much a safe bet. Since 2018.
Take that to the bank.
What was it? Since 2019 when he debuted with Alfa Romeo, he's kind of crashed out every race. So that's a guarantee. It's a guarantee. I think Max is going to win, and I think Checo's going to get P2, and I think Carlos will spin out again.
So you think we're going to basically see the same top 3 that we see here?
I believe so. I think qualifying would be interesting. Now, if, like I said, Haas is really good at qualifying, if they can get the car really high up in the field, they might have a chance at points. We may see Schumi get points.
Well, let's hope so. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this episode, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and wherever else you can follow us, and that's about it.
Oh, yeah, and we're no longer Spotify exclusive. You can find us anywhere.
Yes, you can find us anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcast. You could be listening to this on your Apple TV or Samsung refrigerator. Wherever you want to listen to us, you can now hear us. Put us in your ears.
Except Pandora, because Pandora is a bitch.
Yeah, but who listens to podcasts on Pandora?
Who listens to Pandora? Sign us off, white boy.
Sign us off. Thank you for listening, and peace.
Second and goal just outside the 10. Carr tips it in, and it's Waller. He spins into the end zone for the touchdown.